We've got a really interesting show today. We're talking about Kona Coffees. When I first started getting into serious coffees, or coffees with a serious twist, Kona was considered the coffee. I mean, it was the specialty coffee. Ken, is that real, or is that something that just marketing people came up with?
Kona remains really a kind of free brand, really, for the coffee world. And it's a free brand because for some reason after World War II, the Kona Coffee became associated with Hawaii and with vacations and wonderful times on the beach and warm weather. And it's a very wonderful notion of a kind of a vacation in a cup that Kona became associated with. So that's one Kona. That's the Kona of myth, you could say. Another Kona is that it's a kind of style of coffee, because people who do inexpensive supermarket coffees want to take advantage of the Kona name, of the free brand, and all of those positive associations that they never even had to pay a PR person to create. So they want to offer Kona Coffee. Now, as I'll explain in a few minutes, and we'll probably get back to several times during the show, Kona is a very expensive coffee. It's grown in a very narrow belt that's precariously situated to create perfect weather for coffee, but it's a narrow strip of about 10 miles. It's about 30 miles long and maybe as few as 2 or 3 miles wide. So all that myth is riding on coffee from a very small space, with a lot of small producers doing their best to do coffee in sometimes precarious and difficult situations. So given that, the market, the people who are trying to sell coffee based on the Kona name, do either like a Kona blend, which we'll talk about and I hope taste samples of or examples of. That means it has 10% actual Kona coffee in it and 90% of coffee from other origins. Or there is a Kona style blend, which means that it has no Kona in it, but it's calculated to give the consumer the experience of Kona coffee and all of that associations with warmth and comfort and relaxation. So in that sense, the Kona is a style of coffee. So what is the style of coffee? The style of coffee is based on a kind of almost Platonic idea of Kona coffee. I mean, it exists, and we're going to taste some, I hope, today, but it's a kind of a soft, sweet coffee, has low acidity, has a little spark of life, of acidity, of tickle, of citrus, and it often has floral notes, the best Konas. And so it's a very alive but soft coffee, I would say. A very vivacious but soft coffee. And so that's another definition of Kona, a coffee that tastes like that. The third definition of Kona is the actual coffee in this small growing district. And the issues are many for Kona coffee. It costs a lot. The true Kona coffee costs a lot. It'll say on the can or the box or the advertisement or the bag, 100% Kona. So the sheer labor costs of Kona make it expensive. And then there are problems that coffee growers have everywhere of things go wrong and the trees don't bear. And that's particularly true right now in Kona, where they're having two diseases, or pests really, that came in from the coffee world outside of Kona that they didn't have until about 10 years ago. One is a coffee borer, which is a moth that lays eggs on the coffee fruit, and then the little larva from the coffee borer, as it hatches, the eggs hatch, they drill into the coffee fruit and make these little holes in it. It's really disgusting if you see some ripe coffee that has all these little worms crawling on it. And another problem is leaf rust, which is the great epidemic that's practically ruined Central America coffee starting in about 2012 or so. And so those are two new ones, and then they have a couple of their own, these little grubs called nematodes. Those started in Kona and stayed there. So you put that all together. Climate change, of course, has changed the weather patterns. They've become unpredictable, more unpredictable than before. So all of those reasons make Kona a very expensive coffee. Now, getting back to the last point you made when you first tried to buy Kona coffee, is that roasters often they're not very positive about Kona coffee because they have to pay so much for it. But they feel they have to have it. Some do. They have to offer it. And they sort of resenting it in a sense. and they often, because it's rare, the very best Kona coffees cost much more even than the regular Kona coffees. They resenting having to pay a lot for a coffee that is, to them, not exceptional. Because as we'll see, Kona coffee is not distinctive. You can't tell in the cup that it's Kona. It could be a very nice coffee from Panama or Costa Rica, for example. So all of those reasons make these roasters sometimes testy. So that's the end of my prepared little analysis, Kevin. You got more than you bargained for, I suppose.
Well, I'm glad you gave me more, because really there were some things in there that I've never heard before about Kona, and I really I can tell you Kona is I think to a lot of people in the U.S. it was their introduction to understanding fine coffee, other than 100% Colombian, which we've already done a Colombian show and talked about. There's a myth in the industry. Kona. There's a couple of other names. Jamaican Blue Mountain is another one that I can think of. But these are coffees that are generally very expensive, and they have a cachet about them. And I know that there's a restaurant chain, a breakfast place in Chicago that's well known. It's a Walker Brothers. Advertised for years that they have a Kona blend. It is a blend, of course. It was Superior Coffee when I first started going there, who's long gone. But that particular concept, I think Kona does have a mystique. I think part of it is people been on vacation, and there is something about it. And it is a very mild coffee. I can't imagine, and I don't know, to be honest, even though I chose the coffees, I don't know if any of the coffees we have today is a dark roast. I don't think I've ever had a super dark roast Kona coffee, and I can't imagine having one, because it does seem like kind of a mild coffee to me, and I would imagine it would all but disappear in a super dark roast.
Kevin, that's a good point, that the essence, in a sense, on a supermarket shelf, if you say something's Kona coffee, then the consumers do not expect a dark roast. They expect a kind of a naturally sweet, perhaps delicate coffee.